Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon. I am a workforce development consultant here at the Kent Intermediate School District in Grand Rapids. And I'm so delighted to have Stuart Poltrock with us today. He is a musician and producer. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Stuart. And, you know, your field is one that a lot of young people aspire to. And so we're really excited to have you here and give some inside scoop about your industry. Before we get into exactly what a producer, musician, what you're doing, let's take you back to high school age. You know, when you were 16 or 17, did you think you'd grow up to be a musician professionally and a producer? Tell us that early thinking.
Yeah, high school age, 14 years old on. I did not think this was possible because in the house where I grew up, there was a lot of music. My mom was a musician in the symphony, and my brother was a prodigy. He's older than me, great piano player. And so there's a lot of music, but no one ever said that you could own a recording studio and do this as a job. It's all I really cared about at the time. But then, of course, I went through high school and did okay, and then went to Grand Rapids Community Junior College back then because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a little bit lost. But I was always told that I was a good writer. I could write well, and I thought I enjoyed that. So I went to journalism school then for 2 years. Journalism school at Michigan State. I transferred and thought I would be a writer or journalist. Always, though, playing in bands. I would be with friends and we would play at parties, and my brothers were in bands, and so I was surrounded by that sort of thing. Anyway, I went to journalism school for about a year, and I bombed out. I did. It did not do well because when it came to interviewing people, I just didn't have a heart for it. It just didn't. I could write well, I think, but I didn't want to go research stories. Didn't feel it wasn't my thing. So I left college for a bit, and I went to work in construction. And that was really hard. And it was then that I realized I don't want to work in construction. I want to go back to college, get a degree, and raise my opportunities. So I went back to college and I finished in the shortest amount of time I could with a degree in communications, kind of a minor in journalism because I had lots going on there. But taking a step back, and this is true, I say this when I talk about what I do. I've wanted to do what I do right now as a producer since I was 14 years old. I was fascinated by what I heard on the radio. This is all before the internet. And so I would hear voices on the radio, I'd hear interviews, and they're from different parts of the country. And then how does all that work? What's the technology involved in that? And as a musician, I was fascinated by music I would listen to, music of the 70s, 80s. And in my brain, I hear music in its component parts. I mean, I can hear a song as a song, but I can also pick out, what is the bass player doing? What is the guitar player doing? How many guitars are there, and how are they different? And what different sounds are being made? And how many layers of vocals are included in the vocal parts? And when you really listen to music, it is deep. I mean, the production of music that we all know is very deep and very layered. So
Do you think that was a pretty early skill set that when you look back now, that not everybody has that ability to hear the different levels of music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is a gift. I think something that I have. I think growing up in a musical house helped with that. Although I remember one thing in 7th grade, sitting in music appreciation class, and the instructor was a young guy just out of college, and he played a piece of music, and he said, "Tell me what you hear." And he said, "Tell me what's holding all of this music that you're hearing together." It was an Elton John song called "Philadelphia Freedom." Listen to it sometime, and what do you hear? Well, the thing that really makes that song great is the orchestra behind it. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's an orchestra there, and you kind of take it for granted, but then you realize that's a whole other job. Someone has to score all those parts. They have to get the players to play all those things. There's a lot involved with music. It's very layered.
And that's really my hope with today's Stuart, is that we can help young people understand that there really are professional careers if you have a passion for music and that's what you want to do. So when you are a high school student and you were always in bands and no one had really shared this valuable information with you, were you writing, when you say you were a good writer, were you like writing lyrics at that point, or poems? Like when you look back, were you actually doing some of that work at that time? Or what kind of writing were you good at? Just like your regular research papers?
Yeah, it was research papers in a particular class, rhetoric class. Tough class. The instructor said, "Hey, you're doing really well at this," and he didn't say that to many people. But writing too, I was always fascinated by recording. So this is before computers, okay? So I want to layer two different parts on top of each other. I set a little cassette recorder next to me while my left hip while I played a piano part. Then I set it up on the piano and hit play and had another recorder so I could mix the sound of one cassette recorder with me playing together with it. And I would layer things that way. I mean, that was before multi-track, before any of this great stuff we have was possible. So I was.
That's so fascinating. And I think that's really important. Yeah, for young people who are watching this, is to see how you are already spending your time. Because like you said, you were already showing the clues that anyone who had been watching you would have said, hey, you need to be a producer. So we're going to come back a little bit because I do want to touch into maybe some things you learned while you're in construction, besides I just don't want to be here. But I want young people to know there's never a wasted step in our journey, and that even though you went off the path for a couple of times, that's normal. Like we all don't have it figured out when we're 15 or 16, right? It was part of your journey. But what is a producer then? Help us understand exactly what a producer is, because I know you've already started talking about the components of music and putting things together, right? It's putting the music together. Tell us more.
Yeah. For instance, I'll use an example of a piece of music that we produced here for a film. I had an idea for a song, and I actually had a piece of music, and I said to my brother, who was a great musician, I said, "Can you help me with write the piece of music like this?" And it was the movie that we were working on was a ghost story. And so I asked my friend David John, who has a really dark presence and sense of humor, to write some lyrics for a ghost song. And my friend Kevin Yan has this great big guy. He's got this great big voice. And I said, would you voice this for me? So a producer is the guy, a person who takes, because sort of can imagine the outcome and then puts together the people in the team to make that dream, that imagining happen. That's what a producer does. Just pulls the pieces together and makes it all work.
And I think you probably don't even realize this, Stuart, maybe you do at your age now, but for people to have that kind of creativity, again, that's a very unique gift, because not everybody thinks with their imagination that way, can have this thought and vision in their heads and get it out to even communicate it. So I just want to affirm those young people who are watching this, that if you already think in stories or you think visually, that these are the kind of jobs you should be doing, because not everybody can do it.
So, let me take one step back too, Krista, in that when you said the indirect path, and it's very true. And I found early on that, because I was lost, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any prospects. I had no money. It's hard. What I found is that you do something, you pick something and you do it. And what that does is it takes all these possibilities, I can't do this with my hands, this huge range of all these questions, and it narrows it. And every time you do something, it narrows it more and more and gets you moving in a direction. And if you do something wrong, it puts you in the right direction by doing the thing that you may not love.
I think that's, if young people leave with nothing else today, just to do something and get started is awesome advice. And I really, really appreciate that. Yeah. So you were doing journalism, you left college, you did some construction, saying, I got to get out of here. So you went back to communications with that minor in journalism. How does one then make that next step? What were some of those early jobs that got you to actually into the music producing business then?
Sure. I could, I'll answer the question with one word, and that is, I have to choose my word carefully now. Networking. You could also use the word connections. So I got out of college, again, didn't have any prospects, but I got an invitation to play in a band. Cool. My network grew by 4 people. somebody who knew somebody in the band worked for a film production company. So through this saying yes to an opportunity, I got to meet somebody who knew of a job in a film company. And they said, you should go check that out. And so I did. And I worked at that film company for 6 years. I showed up one day in a suit and tie for an interview with these bunch of people who were just total artists, you know. So I learned a lot that day. They kind of made fun of me for my suit, and I became a big part of the team. And I learned a lot in those 6 years at a film production company about the creative process and film production, and then audio production too. And so the answer to your question is taking advantage of opportunities and then networking, talking to people, taking risks. I did a lot of stuff I didn't know how to do, but I did it. You'll find that most people don't know what they're doing anyway.
Yeah, it's really important as young people that you are around other creatives, that you get around other artists, because again, that is how the world works. And if you enjoy music, get yourself doing it and talk to other people. There's so many with the computers, computers now, there's networks and there's groups of people, there's Facebook pages. So you learn and you took some risks.
I'll speak to that one a little bit further, Krista, and that is that music is really a collaborative art, all right? And with technology, a person can sit in their room and make all the parts, and I think that, artists who have done that, but truly satisfaction in this art is through collaboration with other people.
It's a beautiful thing. And it's neat there's a organization in town called Lions and Rabbits, and it's an art group. Yeah. But that's what I hear. It's very collaborative. And again, it's all that networking, and that's how they find each other, and you're with your people.
That's where opportunities come from too, other people.
So you worked there for 6 years at that film production company, and you were learning and taking risks. And again, you're young, you're just figuring things out. What was that next phase, and how did your career continue to evolve?
Well, I worked there until I got fired.
Yep.
Okay. And that's probably the fifth one of 5 times I got fired in 5 years from jobs, because I would work at it and I didn't do so well. Sometimes I didn't show up, at a cafeteria, and I worked on lawn mowing once, and I ran over somebody's doormat at their apartment building, and that made my boss mad, and he fired me. There were a bunch of things, so I tried a lot of different things. I didn't succeed at a lot of different things. But I did get fired from the film company because I took a risk, and I was right in what I did, and they ended up hiring me back. But that my heart changed. I wanted to get out of there. Then I know that there was a guy that we used to hire to do audio production work. I knew this guy pretty well. He called me up and he said, "Hey, would you like to meet me for breakfast?" And I did. The first thing he did is he took out a piece of paper, the confidentiality form, said, written by a lawyer, and it said, "Whatever we're going to talk about at breakfast today, you can't talk about to anybody else." I said, "Okay." I signed it, and he said, "I want to sell my company." What he was selling was the company I own now. He had started it. He worked out of his house. We worked over a period of a year to build a working relationship where he would stay for a year and a half. I built this facility that I'm in. I could give you a little tour, and I got a bank loan. It was a lot. It took me 18 years to pay it back, but this is what I remember. This is what I wanted to do since I was 14. So it was like, I asked my dad, I said, "What do you think, Dad?" And he said, "You better do it. Otherwise, you can always wonder if you would have made it work." That was 30 years ago.
Good advice, Dad. That's great. Because you were how old at this point? You're a pretty young guy.
30 years old.
30 years, yeah. So that's a big step of faith.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your company and then what you do. What's a typical day like for you as a producer and musician?
Sure. Yeah. My company, you could find me online. I could share a screen if we have time and show my website, and maybe.
Yeah, you can share your screen whenever you'd like, Stuart.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk for a minute and then I'll share a screen. Soundpost Studios. You can find me in Grand Rapids on Old 28th Street. Been here a long time. And like today, I started the day early, answering emails, sending an estimate for the audio production of a TV spot, where I will cast the voice, do the mixing, and maybe produce the music here Um, I finished editing and delivery of a audio Bible in Spanish. Delivered that this morning. I worked on that. I'm pointing this way, but over here, I worked on a TV spot that is for the airport that'll be shown at the Super Bowl next weekend. That was fun because I got to make a lot of the sound effects. Last night we had a young girl in here making giggle sounds. She's included in the spot. And we've been working on the spot for 3 or 4 weeks. A lot of people are really keen on making it great. So it takes a lot of back and forth. Working on radio commercials. Looking at my list over here.
Long hours then?
Yeah.
Not
it can
9 to
be long.
5er?
No, 9 to 5. I get to set my own hours, but all that means is that I work all the hours.
Yeah.
But I enjoy what I do, so it's okay. It's okay.
What are some of the perks of being an entrepreneur then, taking that risk to be a business owner?
Yeah, that's a good question because I've worked for myself for decades. And I really prefer that over working for somebody else. I think it'd be hard to work for somebody else at this point because I can just be who I am, I don't have to worry too much about, I can't be a jerk. I have people working with me and for me. The advantage of working for yourself is you do set your own hours. You set your own, more importantly, you set your own capability, right? Because there's no one to hold you back, and you can do anything you can imagine, right? If you just set your mind out to do it. I think I could be more inspiring with time, but
no, I think it's great.
yeah.
I want to get some nitty gritty. So if a young person is hearing what they're like, man, this producer thing, this is for me. I like that idea of collaboration in this way. What are some paths for young people today to get into it? Obviously, your route was pretty unconventional, really, at the time to be offered an opportunity to buy a business so young. Would you go off to music producing school? How do people get there?
Yeah, good question, because I think everyone's going to know that there are many different ways to get there. And a lot of famous people have gotten there in different ways. Like I think of Billie Eilish, didn't go to school. Taylor Swift didn't go to school, but she's been doing it since she was young. I mean, I'm picking really famous people. A lot of people, so many people are making a living in music and production just because they started doing it. The technology is there so that you can think of something and figure out how to make it. I think that music producers really need to study, though, music theory. It's really important. And, YouTube is, of course, great for that, for learning anything. What was the question?
Yeah, just obviously there's people who are making it big and being successful producers because they're just doing it at home and they end up on YouTube or, TikTok or whatever. Is there a value, like you said, to go to college to learn that music theory, to get some like technical skills or not? Like what would you be? I don't want to dissuade young people from going to college, but what are some of the advantages of getting a formal education around this?
Yeah, right. Well, you don't, to learn the tools and everything, you really don't need to go to college to do it. You don't, because you can watch tutorials and learn a heck of a lot. And the software does so much for you at this point. It really does. So that is not to say nobody should go to college, because college creates a great chance at networking with other people, and it makes a person more well-rounded. Like my favorite classes in college really had nothing to do with what I do, but man, they did help shape me and to make me more aware. And I think it was very valuable. It's super valuable.
Yeah, no, I hear you. For most people who go, it is valuable. But again, there's many routes to get there.
Yes.
I'm wondering, because a lot of this is a natural way that our brains work, or a skill set that, again, some of us don't have, and some people naturally look at things this way. I met a young man who composes music in his head. Like sure. He could be an NPR doing the little vignettes of music between programs. What are some other natural skill sets that you think make successful producers?
Yeah, really important. The key thing is communication. Communication, to be able to talk to people and to distill ideas in conversations to keep things on track. Being very, I can't think of the word, but good with communications. That means you get back to people. That means you call them back right away. You pay attention to emails. And that's half of what I do is typing emails. Communicating and planning, super important. It's more, you do much more of that than the actual producing by far.
Yeah.
It's setting estimates and setting calendars, and when things don't go well, it's owning up to it, and that's huge.
What is your favorite part of your job, Stuart? What's the least favorite?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the favorite part is the collaboration, because I'll do a spin here as I'm sitting, but when I'm working here, I'll walk around a little bit. When I'm working here, I get to work with writers and musicians, teachers, comedians, actors, voice talent. We've had drummers in here in the past couple days. And the best part is working with fun, creative people. The worst part is the bookkeeping. I don't avoid it, but that requires a lot of discipline to stay current with all that. Because the most important thing about a business and entrepreneurship, cash flow.
Yeah, it's important to get those accounts payable and receivables going.
Absolutely.
I want to give you a chance to show your website and some of the vignette that you were kind of clicked on earlier. I know people would be interested in that.
Yeah, I see that we have just a few minutes, so I'm going to share screen.
So I want to hear too, as you're loading that up, Stuart, what's one of your favorite projects that you like look back and go, that was so much fun. I'm so proud of that. That was awesome.
I'll tell you two things. One is I did 70 songs for the school's own publishing company, children's music. In fact, the little thing I'm going to play here, I think you're going to hear a little bit of it. And then second is coming up Monday, I'm working on the TV show La Brea for NBC. One of their actors is from the area, and so she will come in and we record dialogue for the TV show for NBC. So, you can watch it on TV next week. We record it here. And
well, we're going to listen for the giggle during a commercial for the airport on the Super Bowl too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
One quick question before you start. Someone asked if you manage bands. That was one of the questions that came through the chat.
No, I'm a keyboard player in several bands. I do not manage bands. I'm not an artist representative. I'm not an artist developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I got to choose wisely here. I'm going to play a little bit of, is my screen being shared?
Yes.
Just a little bit of this sample on my website of what we've done recently, and a lot of voices. This is commercial work. I'll play it for 30-40 seconds.
What imagine the hairiest of messes with the Bissell Icon Pet Edge cordless vacuum. With a tangle-free brush roll and specialized tools, the Icon Pet is our best vac for pet parents.
Find yourself among towering trees that rise above, manicured greens that roll smooth and true. Crystal Mountain's 2 championship golf courses give you the opportunity to prove.
The Concise Bible Audiobook. Copyright 2021 by Global Bible Initiative. Produced at Soundpost Studios, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Narrated by Jim Sissel. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
It was scary when they told me about the virus. They had to close school, and we couldn't find toilet paper. It was kind of fun. Mom called it an adventure. Now she works from home, but my dad doesn't have a job anymore. Mostly, we feel sad.
Join one of America's best employers right here in West.
So I'll pause there. Can you still hear me?
That's
Okay,
great to hear some of your actual work. That's
Yeah,
super
and I'm
fun.
going to skip way ahead in some of music production. I think you'll hear a little bit of the kids' music right up front.
jumping beat. You keep your eyes open when you're spinning like a top. You skate so fast that you never want to stop. We love you too. We love you.
So I played, you can go to the website, play the full 7 minutes.
Yeah, that's super fun. Thank you for sharing that. I know we did have a question in the chat. They want to know if you would recommend a particular job that would be helpful to young people that would lead them down the path of producing. Is there anything you think at the high school level besides creating their own content for like TikTok or YouTube? Are there any other organizations that they should be involved with or anything locally?
I see the question. Boy. Nothing's coming to mind. I mean, what I'm doing is the job, right? And there was a question there about job shadowing, and yeah, I have interns. I have a high school intern coming up soon, and that student is interested in voiceover work, and much of what I do is dealing with voiceover talent, which is that's a job in and of itself for people who have that gift and talent. Oh my word, I write a lot of checks to voiceover talent who do.
There's a guy that works at a McDonald's near me, and every time I go through the drive-through, his voice is beautiful. And I said, "You got to do voiceovers, dude. Your voice is amazing."
Yeah.
He didn't know that was a thing. He didn't know that was a job, you know?
It is a job. Yeah. In May, I'm going to a conference of voiceover actors. 700 of them meet in one place, and they all talk about how to be better at what they do, and they help each other. It's a real job.
So young people, if you're watching this, and any school counselors, you know, start to Google this kind of stuff. This is what you can find on the internet and find out where people are doing it, and just start creating content. That's what other role model in media says. Just start creating the content, and it'll take you places.
So we're gonna add to that. Yeah, create
Yes.
the content. But you got to get out and meet with other creatives and share the content, because what happens is somebody hears your idea, then you say, "Oh, you could help me with this thing," and then that person says, "Oh, you two did that? Help me with this thing, because this guy's going to pay us to do it." You know, you got to make it and then share it. That's hugely important.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that kind of resonates with your earlier wisdom of just do something. Again, do it, share it. You got to take some risks of just putting yourself out there, especially in this artistic type of creative occupation, right? You got to be okay with people not liking your work or giving some constructive criticism. One quick question before as we finish up. What type of technology have you experienced? I mean, I can't imagine the technology changes of experience, but someone really wants to know about the investment in those beginning stages of that technology to blend some of those sounds. What kind of software do you recommend? What insights?
Yeah, I use a Macintosh computer, and I use what's called Pro Tools software. It's the industry standard for what we do. However, people are creating music with so many others, Cubase. I can't think of them because I don't use them, but they're out there. Apple has their own. Can someone chime in and tell me what it is? I've forgotten what it is. Just 15 seconds. Back when we started decades ago, to do this required a bank load and an investment of like $100,000 to buy the huge equipment, you know, to plug it all in. Now a lot of that is available as comes with the operating system of your computer. I mean, it's just astounding the amount of change that has happened. When I started editing, I was using a razor blade with a piece of tape and taping pieces together. I mean,
Now you're really dating yourself.
Yeah. So the software's out there. It's inexpensive. Oh my gosh, it's so inexpensive and really amazing.
Well, our 30 minutes is up, but I'm going to give you, a few seconds. You got to do a final word of wisdom, even though you've given some amazing pieces along the way here. Anything final to these young people who are exploring this kind of work?
You do it, and don't be afraid. So if I could talk to myself back at that age, here's, I'm going to tell you the advice that your future self should give you right now. Stop being afraid. Just do what you think you should do, and don't care what anybody else is going to think. Just don't be afraid anymore.
I love it. Thank you, Stuart, for your time today. We really appreciate you being a career mentor for us today.
You're welcome.